Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's get right into this video. So today we have back in the salon finally, Sister Spice.
Hello there.
So I got a really nice comment that basically wanted Sister Spice back and some creepy Reddit stories. That is exactly what we're gonna do today. Okay guys, so here is the nail design inspiration.
I kind of wanted this vibe because I'm watching this anime called Nana. One of the characters is Nana. She's like this punk grunge alternative vibe, and I just wanted some grungy goth nails. This is the design we found. I fell in love with it and we were looking for more designs, but I kept comparing the other designs to this one and I was like, yeah, they're just not gonna beat this one.
So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. Whoa, these bad boys are whoa. If you guys remember from the last many months ago when we did Sister Spice's nails, the last time we did creepy Reddit stories, we read this long story about this guy who worked at a frame shop, right?
He worked at an art store that does framing, so like Joann's or, not Joann's, but like that type of art shop, and they do framing.
He could basically see future visions in the artwork. So we didn't finish that story. It had so many parts, but I think today we're gonna start fresh with all new stories. But if you guys do want us to continue that story, let us know in the comments, and then the next time Sister Spice comes in, then we could continue those stories. Okay, but we're just gonna get started on the nails, and Sister Spice is gonna start her creepy Reddit stories. So we're gonna start with some nail prep.
Alrighty, so the story that I'm gonna read, it says it's 6 parts. It's like 5 parts and a finale, so I'm gonna count that as 6. And it's from the No Sleep subreddit, and the title is "My crew and I are stuck aboard an abandoned ship. Can you help us out?" If you're seeing this, that means that the prayers that I've been making with every single ounce of hope left in my body has been answered. Thank goodness. I've been trying for the last 3.5 hours to get through on any way possible to the outside world with no luck. I'm no computer expert, but the water damage to my laptop must have severely messed up the satellite linkage, something fierce. Any attempt to reach any website, be it the official Coast Guard one or even most social media sites like Facebook or Twitter, have yielded with the computer crashing and rebooting. But for some reason unknown to me, Reddit, or should I be more specific and say this particular page on Reddit, managed to load perfectly without any issues. So I'm asking here and now, if anyone reads this, please help. For the record, my name is Nathan Rogers. I'm a 33-year-old man. Oh wait, no, it doesn't say that. It says,
Where did you get that from?
No, it says I'm 33, but not year-old man. I'm 33 years old, and I was the helmsman of a fishing vessel called the Point of No Return. I say was because currently she's thousands of feet beneath my feet and the churning surface of the North Atlantic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In any case, anything happens to us before anyone reads this or I permanently lose connection, I should give you as much details as I can. That way, someone might know where to find us, or at least know what happened. We left our home port of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, about a week and a half ago, bound for Great Banks off the coast of Newfoundland. The point of no return is long, linear, and our aim was mainly to catch swordfish, along with cod and haddock. The prime season for a good haul was coming to a close, and with our haul during the summer falling short of our usual quota, we decided to make one final run to try and make some extra dough. When we arrived, we started off hauling in many good size fish. Everyone was happy. "Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about," called Spencer, the youngest member of our crew, as the first fish was hauled on board. But it was short-lived. After a few days, we began to fail to catch anything. It was as if the fish had disappeared from the area, with our hold not even a quarter full. Gabe, our captain, made the call to sail even farther east to the Phlegm Cap, thanks to a few of us making the mistake of watching the perfect storm to pass the time on the trip. A few of us understandably had reservations about going so far from any landmass, but the captain pointed out the obvious. "Boys, I wish it wasn't necessary to do," he began, rubbing his thick white beard, "but it's either try the cat or go home broke." He looked to the sky, which looked clear. "Besides, The radar says there shouldn't be any storms for a duration of our trip. Up until now, I've never believed in the concept of jinxing, but I can't help but swear that he jinxed the heck out of us with those words. We made our way for the cap and reached it about a day or so later. To our shock, and of course our elation, we began to haul in a metric ton of fish. Any apprehensive we had melted away like butter in a pan, and we all became infected by the thought of how much money we were going to make. Until, that is, the dark clouds began to move in on the horizon. I'd been at my station at the helm, and I'd look out to the starboard windows to see the ominous dark clouds rolling in towards us. What the heck? According to weather reports, the nearest storm wasn't hundreds of miles away. And yet here I was, staring one dead in the face. You gotta be kidding me, I muttered, flicking on the ship's autopilot and walking for the door that led outside. I pushed it open and the thick smell of the ocean and fish wafting over me. Looking down at the aft deck, I saw the captain helping the others ready the line for the next drop. "Hey, Cap!" I yelled out, raising my voice to be heard above the boombox blasting out hard rock music. He glanced up, shielding his eyes so that he could see me better. I stabbed my finger towards the gathering storm, which occasionally flashed with lightning. I still perfectly remember how the captain's face filled with shock and surprise as he turned to see it. The rest of the crew turned and spotted it as well. "Oh, that's just great," Will, another one of our crew, shouted, dropping the hooks and the line to the deck. The rest of the crew let our curses and some turned to the captain, asking him questions. I couldn't hear over the music. After speaking to them for a few minutes, he walked over and turned off the boombox, before making his way up the steps to stand beside me. "Where exactly in the heck did that come from?" he muttered, pulling his hat off his head and scratching at the tufts of gray hair that remained there. I don't know, sir," I admitted, watching another bolt of lightning flash inside. "All I know is I was at my station looking around, and one minute I don't see it, and the next," I trailed off. I followed the man back to his wheelhouse as he walked to the radar display. For a moment, he stared down at it, then lightly began to smack it. "Piece of trash," he growled. "What's wrong?" I asked him. He gestured to the screen. "The stupid radar must have been on the fritz again. It doesn't show the storm on the radar at all." A small wave of confusion swept over me. I personally repaired the system the last time it wonked out. As far as I know, it had been working perfectly, but as I stepped next to him, I saw he was right. No storm clouds were displayed on the radar in the direction the storm was coming from. What the? A shiver ran up my spine, one I didn't understand why I had. The cabin was warm and comfortable, and yet it felt as if I'd walk in through the thick fog. Finding his voice, I looked at the captain, who had a thoughtful gaze. "So, what do we do?" He took a second to answer, then sighed. "I'm not gonna risk you boys on my ship, especially not after we had such a good catch in the hold. Start plotting us a course back to Portsmouth. Hopefully we manage to stay ahead of the storm." And with that, he turned and left the wheelhouse, heading back outside to help the others store the gear in preparation for our departure. I could hear the faint sound of them yelling to each other as they rushed about it, the music playing again as well. I walked to the starboard window and gazed out. The storm appeared closer now, the lightning's flashing becoming more frequent. A particularly bright flash came for a moment. My eyes locked on a cloud formation that had been silhouetted in it. I blinked and blinked rapidly, the rational side of my brain attempting to wrangle in the thoughts. "No, there's no way you just saw that. You know full well storms play tricks on your eyes." Shaking my head, I returned to the helm, turning off the autopilot and nudging the throttle forward. Hearing the rumbling of the engines increase, I kept telling myself that I'd been seeing things, but another shiver ran up my spine as I couldn't shake the image from my mind. The image of a cloud formed into a shape of a human skull. We only made it about 6 or 7 miles west when the storm overtook us. I'd be on the water my whole entire life and been fishing on commercial vessels since I was about 18 years old. I've seen many strange and sometimes unexplainable things, and I've seen my fair share of storms, some very bad, but I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I've never seen a storm as fierce as this one. 20 minutes after that, the dark gray clouds rolled in, almost black clouds. The point of no return was being hammered by 12 to 14-foot swells, crashing water onto the deck. The wind howled as fiercely as a banshee, and the world around us almost turned pitch black, the only illumination coming from the most blinding flash of the lightning, which were followed by roars of thunder. I gripped the helm with my hands that had begun turning white at the knuckle, bracing my legs for each impact. The captain stood beside me, me, gripping the metal rail next to the helm to keep from falling. "Just keep going," he yelled to me. Some of the crew stood behind us, staring out at the storm with wide, frightened eyes. It was a fear that I found infectious, for as much as I kept calm for all outer appearances, inside, I was terrified. As horrifying as a horror movie monsters are made out to be, they don't hold a candle to the existential dread and horror that Mother Nature at her worst can instill in you. Suddenly, Wyatt, one of our engineers, flew up the stairs from below. "Captain, we're taking on water somewhere, and I can't find the source." I saw many of my crew's faces go pale, but the captain remained calm. "All of you, get below and help Strokey find the source and either patch it or seal it. Then start the pumps to get the water in the boat out." For a moment, nobody moved until he barked again. "Do you want to end up in the bottom of the ocean? Move your butts!" That got their attention, and they quickly followed Wyatt down the stairs to the crew quarters and lower decks. As he crested another huge swell, I spared a glance at the radar screen. It still showed no sign of the storm, and on its green screen, as the line made its way around us in a circle, I shook my head, feeling a strange feeling, one I couldn't place, come over me. Pushed it away, forcing myself to focus. "Everyone's counting on you, Nate. Keep your head in the game, and pray to the good Lord above you make it out of this." I shot a glance at the captain. "You really think we're gonna make it out through this, right, Gabe?" I asked, the seriousness in my using his first name making him look harder at me, before clapping a hand on my shoulder. "With a good crew and a terrific men at the helm, son, yes I do," he declared, pulling out a pipe from his pocket and lighting it. Thick, hazy smoke filled the room as he spoke again. "I've been through some far worse than this, after all." Somehow, I doubted this man's word, but I tried to let them bring me much-needed comfort. A large wave crashed over the bow, splashing the front windows with water and obstructing my view ahead for a few moments. When it cleared, the world outside again was pitch black, the outer lights of the boat barely illuminating 20 feet around us. A strong vibration suddenly emitted from the floor beneath my feet, and I shot a glance down at the metal. What on earth was that? My answer was given a moment later as another crew member, Andrew, ran up the stairs. There's kind of like too many characters.
I'm a bit confused. Like, are they going to each be important, or it's like, who cares?
Right. Well, I guess we have like the engineer, another crew member, the captain, our narrator. He was soaked with seawater, and his eyes darted around in their sockets in panic. "Captain, the pumps are working their hardest, but we're taking on more water than they can expel. We can't find the source of the leak either." The captain cursed, then turned to me. "Nathan, hold fast up here and keep us going east. I'm gonna go below and try to help." Not giving me any chance to answer, he turned away, beginning to head towards the companionway stairs. I turned back to look out the window when the brightest flash of lightning came, turning the world around us from night to day. It also revealed something dead ahead, something that made my heart almost stop. "Oh my effing life," I managed to whimper out. Racing towards the point of no return was a rogue wave. Remember, point of no return is their ship name. Mm-hmm. One that dwarfed all the swells around us. My mind screamed at me that it had to be at least 30 or 40 feet high, enough that it blocked out the sky ahead. "Captain!" I screamed at the top of my lungs. I heard him stop, then the sound of his footsteps as he dashed back next to me. "Good God Almighty!" I heard him breathe. "Nate, turn us broadside into the wave. Our only hope is that for us to roll over completely." I turned to see him snatching the microphone headset, which was connected to the wheelhouse to the ship's intercom, as I began ripping the helm to the port. Behind me, I heard Andrew let out a strangled scream as he spied the behemoth racing towards us. "All hands, we have a rogue wave coming. Brace for impact," the captain shouted into the mic. Below, I heard the terrified shouts of my crew spring up. I clenched the helm in a death grip as tears slightly poured out of my eyes. In my head, the scene from The Perfect Storm flashed. Andrea Gale being flipped and driven into the ocean. I only had enough time for one quick thought. Please, no. The wave smashed into us with all force of a dozen runaway semi-trucks. The port side windows of the ship shattered into thousands of pieces, and freezing seawater rushed over us in a seemingly unending wave. For a moment, my mind was unable to comprehend what had happened. And then it began, screaming at me as I felt the world begin to rotate. We're underwater? We're flipping underwater in the wave. The realization horrified me, and I felt certain that we would be beginning to sink like a stone to the bottom of the ocean. I let out a silent prayer for my death to be quick. And then, to my astonishment, we emerged back into the world above the waves. Imagine that.
So their whole ship flipped over.
Their whole ship flipped over and they went underwater. For a second,
and rolled back up.
And then rolled back up. The shock at still being alive froze me in place, and then I looked around. I spied beneath the captain, who locked his arms in a death grip around the metal bar next to me. Andrew had been tossed to the back of the wheelhouse. I saw a large gash in his head as he stumbled to his feet, coughing out water. Man, you seen the wave? Like, you're just gonna just stay hold on to something. You're gonna be thrown like a rag doll. You imagine, when you're at the beach and then the waves just like overcome you, like on you know what I mean? You get like sunken under. Like, you get like pushed under. So imagine that big behemoth wave flipping the whole ship, getting pushed under. Instantly, the captain ran to the stairs and shouted down there, "Somebody, get up here and give me a damn report." As he did, I looked down at the screen in front of me. I felt a wave of despair wash over me as I saw most had short-circuited after meeting the ocean. The radar still glowing green, though the screen cracked and flickered as though it would go out at any second. Wyatt appeared at the top of the stairs, blood dripping from his right arm and soaked to the bone. "Give me some good news, Wyatt," the captain yelled over the howling of the wind that screamed into the wheelhouse through the broken windows. To me, it sounded almost like a plea than a demand. Wyatt shook his head. "The port side engine is dead, sir. Starboard is still running, but barely. Our main generator is dead, and the backup is running everything at full capacity."
Time to cut these.
This is our pose. What do you think?
How long do you want these?
Can you rough estimate? Don't cut anything. You do this every single time.
Shorties.
I think you're a little too far down. I thought we said we wanted long nails.
We do.
I'm gonna curse myself later, but I don't care. And I gotta remind myself. Remember you said you didn't care. I'm not gonna be able to braid my hair, brush my teeth, take a shower, put on any clothes. Good thing my favorite hobby is bed rotting.
And eating.
Bring me a plate of food. He's saying like, this engine's dead and blah, blah, blah. I don't know what any of that means, but I'm just gonna be like, oh, that probably can't be good.
Yeah.
He let out a shaky breath and looked at the floor before finishing. "And the pumps are dead as well, sir." For a moment, nobody spoke. The implications of the man's words hung like nooses around our necks. The pumps were dead, and so were we. It was only a matter of time before the ship filled up with too much water. We're now running on borrowed time. I thought nimbly. When the captain spoke again, his tone was more subdued. "Go down below and tell the men to gather all their emergency supplies that they can. Food, water, first aid kits. Have them bring up the life rafts and set it down. We'll stay with the ship as long as she'll take us. Then we'll abandon the ship into the raft." Wyatt began to speak. "Captain, with all due respect, these waves will tear apart the captain cut him off. "Don't argue with me, just do it," he barked. Wyatt took a step back, then turned wordlessly and headed back down the gangway. He then turned to Andrew, who began shaking slightly, a result of both the freezing water covering him and fear. "Andrew, try the radio and send out a distress call. You know the drill." For a moment, the younger man stood still as a statue. Then he rushed to the radio and jammed his hand down the transmit button. "Mayday! Mayday! This is the fishing vessel Point of No Return. Registration number 57306. We're approximately, somewhere of the coast of Newfoundland, and we need urgent assistance. Our ship is taking on water and sinking. Does anyone read me?" I turned his words out as he began to repeat, turning in instead to look out the broken windows. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew we were royally effed. Wyatt's right. These waves will tear that raft to pieces before anyone reaches us. The numbness began to spread as I was faced with the unavoidable thought that these might be my final minutes of life. Moments of my past flash in front of my eyes. Growing up as a child in Portsmouth, spending weekends at my friends of my mother's in Kittery Point, visiting BG Boathouse and my mother and aunt. My relationship with Dana, my ex. Why relationship with Dana and then your ex?
Okay. Wait, is Dana the ex or is Dana someone and then his ex?
He said my relationship with Dana, my ex. So maybe he's like, oh, Dana's my ex.
Dana's his ex.
Dana is his ex, right? You know, he didn't seem like that type of guy.
Yeah, Dana, and then thinking of your ex, like, whoa, buddy.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't seem like this type of guy. A single image suddenly appeared in my mind. My friends and my family crowded around a cross, commemorating us, crying. My breathing began to come in short, raggedy gasps as I tried to force the image away. Bing! The sound snapped me out of my inner battle with my mortality, and I blinked up for a second. What the? Then it came again. Bing! The realization suddenly crashed into me as hard as the wave had. The radar! Looking down, I watched the flickering screen as the line made its way around again. This time, as the sound rang through the wheelhouse a third time, I saw the large shape appear, and it sent a bolt of renewed hope through me. Captain, I've got something on the radar. The sound of Andrew's distress call stopped as both men turned towards me. I think it's a ship. Instantly, the man was at my side, gazing down at the screen. I don't believe it. You're right, he breathed out in an astonished tone. Then he locked eyes with me. Are you thinking what I'm thinking, Nate? He asked. I swallowed. Gabe, right now, there isn't much of an alternative. He looked at me for another second before nodding. Then head south, approximately southeast, and pour out the power. For the next 20 minutes, we crashed through the storm in silence, aside for Andrew, who returned to attempting a distress call. Finally, he gave up. Captain, the rogue wave must have snapped off our radio antenna, he said. Still, we continued on. I strained my eyes against the lashing wind, and rain poured through the windows, praying to catch sight of our only chance at survival. And then, in the flash of lightning, I saw it. Even a few miles away from us, I could tell the ship was huge. She rose almost imposingly out of the water, rolling up and down in the waves of the storm. Another flash of lightning showed that her hull was black, while her upper decks were painted white. Two large red and black smokestacks rose into the sky, almost disappearing out of sight. I heard the captain let out a low whistle as he spotted it as well. She's got to be, 800 feet long? I called out over the wind. Try more like 1,000, he yelled back. By now, most of the rest of the crew had reappeared from below deck. They brought the gear the captain had ordered up and had packed it into the waterproof bags. I'd also requested that the satellite phone and laptop be brought up as well. Unfortunately, the phone was very much dead from being submerged, but the laptop, according to Will, was able to be salvaged. When they caught sight of the giant ship, they let out cheers and turned to hug one another. I realized I hadn't been the only one feeling that death was breathing down our necks. So they come across this ginormous ship. And then I'm just thinking about all the fish that they catch. That's done for. They can't even make money now. As we drew within half a mile of the ship, I realized something was off. Captain, she's dead in the water, not moving at all. I yelled. If she'd been under power, it would have taken longer to draw near. The captain looked hard, then nodded. You're right. She must have snapped off her mooring lines in the storm somewhere. It's a ghost shift adrift. I saw the crew's faces fall at the news. So what do we do now? Kenny, the other engineer, asked. The captain turned to them as I steered us closer. We stick to the plan. We draw alongside her and find a way aboard. We transfer our equipment on board, and then we'll go from there. The look of hope returned in some of their eyes, but I saw apprehension enter others. I didn't blame them one bit. Fear still coursing through my veins. All it takes is one screw-up, one mistake, and we're all done for. So they said this is a ghost ship, or is there people on here?
A ghost ship, as in, it's, abandoned, I guess.
The captain ordered me to the ship's port side, as it gives us a small bit of shelter from the storm. He then snapped on the powerful searchlight, which thankfully hadn't been taken out by the wave, and traced it over the ship. A few minutes later, I heard him let out a triumphant laugh. Nate, move us next to the middle of the ship. There's a ladder dangling there. He was right. I saw the white lines and wooden steps flailing about in the wind. Sparring a glance behind us and steering that the ocean was beginning to creep over the back of the transom, I hastily maneuvered the point of no return, which is the boat, to the ladder, nudging the throttle into neutral as he drew alongside. Sparing a glance out the open side door, I saw Spencer and Will reaching out with their boat hooks to snatch the ladder. Yes. The two men hooked it and latched it onto our railing. Okay, one man at a time. Get the gear and get up there, he yelled. Slowly, most painfully, the 8 members of our crew made their way up the ladder and onto the ships. As I watched Wyatt climb out of sight and sound caught my attention, I looked down to see all the remaining gauges die and the sound of the remaining engine idle die away. Oh no. Almost immediately afterwards, I became aware of a new sound. It was one that spurred a new wave of panic in me. It was the sucking sound of the sea rapidly flooding the point of no return. Captain, she's going under, I screamed, snatching up the last bag of supplies. I saw the man give me an almost pained look as he casted one final look at the vessel he'd worked his entire life to afford, before shouting at me and Kenny, the last 2 aboard besides himself. All right, boys, abandon ship. Kenny went up the ladder first, unable to wait for him to make it all the way up. The captain and I unsnapped the ladder from the railing and began climbing after him. We were halfway up when I heard the sucking sound increase to a fever pitch. Stopping and sparing a look below me, I saw the point of no return's bow lift out of the water as her stern slipped below the waves. She rapidly began to sink, and I turned to continue climbing. Their ship is gone. That was when a scream came from overhead. I snapped my gaze up to see a body fall past me, missing me by less than a foot. For a moment, shock kept my mind from working until I realized who'd I'd seen in the split second of a flash. Kenny! I screamed out into the dark, but when the lightning flashed again, I saw no signs of him floating in the waves. Only the bow of our ship as it finally slipped below the waves.
Wait, so it wasn't a random girl scream?
No.
It was one of their crew members.
Yeah, it was Kenny. Remember the last 3? Kenny, him, and the captain. Kenny went up the ladder first.
Wait. So how did he get on? No, I know. But you doing a girl scream, I thought it was whole other people.
On the ship?
Yes.
Oh, no. It was Kenny. He fell off the ladder. Like a doof. He must have slipped. Lost his grip.
Oh.
I shouted the man's name again, the wind tearing the cry from my lips and off into the storm. Nathan, he's gone, came a cry from below me. I shot a look down, seeing the captain looking up at me with a horrified expression. Get up the ladder, he ordered.
So they're all climbing the ladder right now. And Kenny was at the top. And he fell off past them and fell down. Oh, that's really scary.
I fought my emotions for a moment, then climbed as quickly as I could for the railing. A few moments later, both the captain and I hauled ourselves over, collapsing onto the wooden deck with sputtering coughs and groans. When I raised my head, it was to see the ashen face of Wyatt looking down at us. Where's Kenny? He cried. I took in a shaking breath, then shook my head slowly at him. I saw the shock and horror flash into his face. The same happened to all the men standing behind him. For my part, I felt simply numb. Even though I'd lost my aunt to ovarian cancer in 2009, lost one of my mom's family friends to brain tumor in 2012, I'd never actually seen someone die before, not in real life anyways.
Primer and dehydrator time. We're going to add this Young Nails Protein Bond 2. Before these, we did a Gel X set on Sister Spice that you guys didn't see, unfortunately, but they lasted almost 3 weeks. So that's pretty good for Gel X. And I did her nails at her house, so I didn't have all my proper equipment. So now we're going to try this combination with Polygel. Hopefully it lasts a long time too.
My mind was a jumble. I couldn't think properly. Thankfully, though, the captain stood up and spoke, his voice shaking only for a second before hardening. As hard as this may be for everyone, we need to get inside and out of the storm. We'll have time to be able to grieve later. Right now, we need to get away from the wind and the rain before we catch pneumonia and hypothermia. His words seemed to bolster everyone, even myself, as we all stood gathering our supplies and moving to find a door inside. After a minute of searching, we found one, and after snapping on the waterproof flashlights we all had, we stepped inside the ship. Instantly, the sound of the howling wind grew fainter as we found ourselves inside a companionway of some kind. It seemed like it was meant for the crew. It seemed more Spartan in function over form than what I'd seen from the rest of the ship. Nobody said a word as we made our way down until we found another door. Will, being the first in line, reached out and opened it. and we stepped into what I can only describe as the most luxurious lounge I've ever been in. The walls were plastered with wood that reflected back into the glow of our lights. What appeared to be marble lined the ceiling overhead. I saw dozens on the table and chairs, ones that had once been scattered across the room, lying overturned or on their side, no doubt thrown by the storm. Walking further into the room, I turned to the left and aimed my flashlight at the wall, and nearly jumped out of my skin as my light reflected off a huge face that gazed back at me. "Jeez!" I shouted, feeling my heart begin a marathon in my chest. What is it?" I heard Andrew call out. All the men ran to me and aimed their lights at what I'd seen. Instantly, the tension that filled the room was replaced by the sound of laughter. "Oh my gosh, Nate, are you really that afraid of the Queen of England?" Vinny, another one of our crew, asked as he fought out a breath. I let out a shaky breath of my own as I played my light over what I now saw was a painting, one of Queen Elizabeth II. Then I began to laugh along with them. Good Lord, Nathan, you really are a scaredy cat. For a minute, we all stood there laughing and feeling the mood lighten somewhat. The levity helped lighten the sadness that we all felt. It was cut short by the captain's voice as a loud rumble of thunder came from outside. "All right, everyone, change into dry clothes and break out the sleeping bags. Then get some sleep. This has been one of the worst days of our lives. We need to rest. Tomorrow, we'll take the stock of the ship and figure out what to do next." And with that, everyone began to fan out, finding a lone corner to change in without being seen as they did. I approached the captain. "Gabe," I said, tapping the man on the shoulder. Gabe is not really giving, commander captain vibes. He turned to look at me, and I instantly saw the haunted look in his eyes. The poor man blames himself for Kenny. I wanted to say something that it wasn't his fault. Instead, I told him I wanted to stay up a little bit, get the laptop out. He wanted to say something endearing, and then he's just wimped out and said, "I'm gonna get the laptop."
We're gonna use some clear polygel. It's gonna be the base for all the nails.
Instead, I told him I wanted to stay up a little bit, get the laptop out, and try and get a signal from the satellite connection, to try and find a way to send out a call for help. After a moment hesitation, he agreed, gesturing towards the vast amount of chairs and tables. "Go ahead and try. Try and get some sleep afterwards, though." I nodded, then patted him again on the shoulder before turning away. That's where I am now. I'm changing into dry clothes and found a thick cushioned armchair on its side. I sat it upright, then pulled out the laptop. What ship did they fall on? Because, a cruise ship? Maybe a cruise ship, because they found luxurious stuff, The battery was thankfully fully charged, and I have a solar charger if it gets low, which survived. But as I said at the start, it had to have sustained some kind of water damage because it won't let me get to many of its sites. Only this one. I'm the only one of us left awake now. All around me I can hear the snores of my fellow crewmates, hearing them roll over to get comfortable on the carpeted floors. I still hear the rain pounding on the roof of the great ship. Hear the thunder rumble and feel the ship lurching up and down in the waves. I pray she doesn't hit any rocks during the night. We don't need another problem on our hands. There is one final thing I have to say, though. I can't help but feel foolish about it. I know that we're the only ones aboard. Otherwise, people would have already come out by now. We'd be swarmed with crew or passengers. And yet, I can't shake the feeling I'm being watched. I know it's ridiculous, but I can't make the feeling go away. I feel like a goldfish with its owner staring at me. And I don't like it one bit. I even took a walk around outside this lounge to reassure myself nobody else is here. I know the captain wouldn't have liked me doing so. I wouldn't have been able to sleep otherwise. If anybody reads this, can anyone help us? We're only fishermen who've dealt with a 70-foot-long liner, not a giant cruise ship or ocean liner. Does anyone know what we have to do to get power going again? Where we have to go? If we can get power restored? We might be able to get this radio on board working again and let people know we're out here. And is there anything else important we should do tomorrow? Anything at all you can think of? Please let me know. If anyone sees this, I'll check back in the morning to see. Oh, and one final thing. I don't know if it will help, but when I went out for my walk to prove myself nobody else was here, I found a life ring which had the name of the ship strapped to it. Maybe someone can look it up to see if the ship has been labeled missing or something, which would work to try and get someone to know where we are. The name of the ship bears the same name as a huge, almost creepy looking paint on the wall. That in the dark I tried not to look at. RMS Queen Elizabeth. Is that a real ship?
Everyone looking it up right now. This is fake, guys. I don't see Queen Elizabeth's ship.
Someone Redditor left in the comments. I have some really bad news. You are not only on a ghost ship, You are on an actual ghost ship. The Queen Elizabeth caught on fire and was deconstructed long ago. There are for sure ghosts aboard, but probably something worse than that because they brought you all aboard for a reason. To either feed off you guys in some fashion or because they are lonely. Or maybe they just like to screw with people. Either way, stay in a large group and don't eat the rice.
What rice?
Someone said, what's wrong with the rice? Their name is Misdirection. Yeah, they said, what's wrong with the rice? And the same person that said the first comment replied, there's a movie called Ghost Ship, and the only thing I remember from the movie is a couple people eating the rice, or what they thought was rice, turned out to be maggots. They were hallucinating. I watched it at a tender age and did not eat rice for like 15 years.
Well, if you're sane-minded, then you're not gonna accidentally eat maggots.
Whoa, look at that big bowl of rice, dude. It's moving. Well, yeah, that's the end of that part. Alright, this is just for the record. We're on part 2 of the story. Alright, I'm going to part 2 now. And remember, this is the morning time because he said he was gonna check back in the morning. Thank goodness. To say I'm relieved that my first post got through would have been an understatement of massive proportion. Even though it seemed like not many people saw it, the fact anybody did is a blessing in itself. It gives me hope that all of us might make it out of here. First and foremost, to the people who did see it and commented, I can't thank you enough, especially to the person who suggested a plan for what to do regarding the power. It was actually thanks to you that I was able to give the captain and others a suggestion of what to do today. Unfortunately, due to the fact we were so excited to get off the point of no return before she sank out from under us, we didn't bring the life raft with us, only the supplies we thought we'd needed. We were too caught up in the fact we had a better alternative to remember to lug it up the ladder. I do have to confess one thing to you all though. When I first woke up this morning and checked the comments you left, I thought people were either pulling my leg, thinking I was BSing you all, or that you had been mistaken. After all, if the Queen Elizabeth caught fire and sank years, if not decades ago, how the heck are we on board?
So is this a real story?
No,
I think I'm fooling myself. Like,
no way. And I read that Redditor's comment.
Because I'm thinking people are gonna think this is real, and now I actually am confused and wondering if it's real.
It's just a Reddit story. It's literally on the no Reddit subpost, so it has to be fake.
Right? He said it was the only page he could get into.
How could we have gotten on board? Ghost ships, legitimate ones, only...
Legitimate?
What do you say?
Legitimate.
Legitimate ones only exist in horror films, not real life. And I'm gonna get going. There had to be a mistake here. However, after some of the things that have happened today, I can't help but start to wonder if you're right. And if you are, well, if we're in a whole lot bigger trouble than I thought we were, I should tell you what went down today. When I first woke up, the first thing that I realized was the storm had passed. The rain no longer pounded on the roof of the ship, and it no longer twisted about in the swells. For a moment, it was so calm that I had forgot where we were, what had happened yesterday. Then everything came crashing back into me, causing me to sit up straight in my sleeping bag. The first thing that I saw was the captain, who sat in one of the lounge chairs. He must have woke up a while ago. His head turned in my direction as I pulled myself out of the sleeping bag and to my feet, and he gave me a short nod. Winding my way around the sleeping forms of the others, I made my way over to him. "How long have you been up, Capt?" I whispered as I picked up another chair and sat beside him. He shrugged. "A little while now. I was planning on waking everyone up in 20 minutes or so anyways." I could still see that losing Kenny still weighed heavily on his shoulders. The man likely hadn't gotten much sleep due to it eating away at him. I decided to say something. "You know, what happened wasn't your fault, Gabe. Kenny was above us. We couldn't have done anything to save him. It was just an accident." For a moment, I saw his eyes harden and his mouth opened, as if to snap at me. Then he slumped into the chair. His body seemed to sag. I appreciate you saying that, Nathan, more than you know," he sighed. "But a captain's job is to keep his crew together and get them safe home. I didn't do that for Kenny, and I'm gonna have to live with that." I wanted to argue, but I saw that no amount of it would have changed his mind. Instead, I nodded and turned to look out across the massive room. We rose the others a few minutes later, and as soon as they opened up the supplies we'd brought to bring out some food and water, the captain reminded me to check the laptop, booting it up. I saw the batteries low, making a mental reminder to set the solar power charger in the sunlight outside to charge it back up. Then I checked the post I made. Hope and excitement surged through me as I saw comments left below. You guys! People saw what I wrote! I called out. In seconds, I was surrounded as everyone crowded around me. A bottle of water and a granola bar were shoved into my hands as they read the comments you all left. There was silence for a moment. Then Spencer spoke up. That can't be right, he said. Softly, he looked up at us. These people can't be right. There's no way the ship they're talking about is the same one we're aboard, Wyatt answered him. No way, Spencer. They either think we're playing with them and just spewed BS, or they're thinking of another ship. We're not in some early 2000s horror movie. I shot a look at the captain. Cap, you're the oldest of us all, I began. Do you know if there was a ship called the Queen Elizabeth? Did that catch fire and sink? He stayed quiet for a moment, seemingly lost in his thoughts before answering. There was a ship called the Queen Elizabeth that was built in 1930s that did catch fire and sink in Hong Kong harbor in the early 70s. He shook his head. But no, there's no way this could be the same one. There are no such things as ghost ships that manifest out of nothing. He stood up, seeming to push away any remnant thoughts of the matter from his head. We need to get going on more realistic and pressing matters, though. We need to find a way to get the power going. Without it, we have no way to operate the radio to send out call for help. I pointed at a particular comment that gave me an idea of what to do. He leaned down, silently reading it before nodding. Well, that's our plan for today, he declared, before splitting up into two teams. Should I have read more of the comments on the last post? Because there was someone who said, go down and look for big generators. Before splitting us into two teams, one team comprising of myself, Andrew, and Spencer and Will would explore as much of the ship as we could, while the captain, Wyatt, and the only other remaining member of our crew, a tall, muscular Italian man named Vinny, would try and find their way down to the bowels of the ship to restore power. With the plan made and a set of walkie-talkies given to the captain and me to maintain contact with each other, we exchanged our last good luck and stay safe and left the lounge. Why did they describe Vinny and not the other characters?
Maybe he's going to be important because now I know who Vinny is. But when they said like Andrew, Kenny, I don't know who they are. They're just random people. But now I know who Vinny is.
Vinny's a strong, muscular Italian man.
Yeah, so now that they say that, I'll think of someone
strong, muscular, and Italian.
And not just a regular rando crew member.
Right, don't know why they explained only him.
He must be important.
Flickering on our flashlights, the four of us slowly walked back through the hallway we'd taken to get inside. A moment later, we emerged into the bright light of day. The sun felt nice and warm on my face, and I couldn't help but let a small smile across my face. It disappeared, though, as my eyes looked out beyond the railing. The endless ocean surrounded us, stretching far away beyond the horizon. No signs of land anywhere. A small shiver shot through me as an image of our ship slipping beneath the waves replayed in my mind, along with watching Kenny fall to his doom. I shook my head. Snap yourself out of it, Nate, and keep focus.
Okay, guys, so this is like my POV.
I pulled the solar charger from my pocket and set it down next to the open hatch. I'd pick it up later when we come back this way. Andrew spoke up, pointing to the row of lifeboats that were hanging. You think those would be safe for us to use? He asked. I shrugged my shoulders. I don't see why not, but I wouldn't want to try and use one of those to get back to the shore. I pushed my hair out of my eyes and pushed my glasses up my nose. All right, guys, let's keep moving. For the next few hours, the four of us explored both the inside and the outside of the ship, occasionally stopping to radio our position back to the captain. The Queen Elizabeth was indeed a luxurious ship in every sense of the word. The wood on the outside of the decks was well varnished and teaked, shining brightly in the sun. The same was true for the miles of wood that plastered the walls and carpeted hallways, and rooms that crisscrossed inside like a maze. I was almost in awe of how beautiful it was. However, there was one thing that surprised me, and I wasn't the only one to notice. As we walked through another lounge, Will said the words that reverberated in my head. Anyone else notice we haven't seen a single TV on board yet? Andrew shrugged his shoulders. Hey, who knows? Maybe they took all the TVs off the walls for renovation or something. Or maybe it's one of those ships that deliberately doesn't have any in order to keep the passengers from not taking part in activities. His words reassured me a little, but I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. The entire time we'd been exploring the ship, an indescribable feeling had followed me like an annoying dog. And to make matters worse, the feeling of being watched I had last night hadn't gone away. Every so often I would shoot a look behind us as we walked, aiming my light back the way we came. I saw nothing, but for whatever reason, it felt like something had been there and pulled back just out of sight and every single time I looked. As we entered, the sign above the door was the first class smoking section. The radio on my belt chirped. There was a layer of static above everything due to the massive amount of steel and wood in the way, but the words of the captain were unmistakable.
Nathan, we finally reached the engine room. We also found the power source.
I heard a small trace of surprise in the man's voice as he continued.
You're not going to believe this, but the ship is powered by what appears to be Yarrow boilers. I haven't seen these things on the ship since I was a young man in the Navy.
So they are trying to say that it is that lost, that ship that set on fire.
Because
they
old.
because they were alluding to no TVs being back in that day. They had no TVs, I'm assuming. So they are trying to say it is the Queen Elizabeth.
Vicky, you're smart.
Yeah, you know.
Because back in the day, did you have a TV back in the day? No. Vicky, here's what I thought with the TV thing, that there's some guy on board, he collected all the TVs to make one giant surveillance screen, but your theory makes more sense.
Okay, you never know. Maybe. It might just take that turn.
Spencer's face scrunched up in confusion. What the heck is a Yarrow boiler? He asked. I shrugged my shoulders, then hit the transmit button. Can you get the power going? There was another wave of static before he answered.
It'll take a little bit, but yes, we'll be able to get the power back up to the ship. Just give us about 20 minutes or so. Half an hour at most. It's been a while since I've ever had to fire one of these behemoths up, and there are 12 of them down here.
And with that, he clicked off. Well, now what do we do in the meantime? Will asked. Spencer began to answer him. Well, I remember seeing on the map on the wall that there's a first-class gym on deck. The four of us could go lift some weights.
Get shredded.
Or if we fancy a swim, there's a swimming pool as well. Or heck, we could even... He kept speaking.
Wait, so you're telling me you just got flipped over in a ship? You just got rolled over in a ship, crashed waves on you, and you want to go swimming? And how old is this swimming pool from the 1700s or something? That thing gonna be green.
1330s. That thing is gonna be green. Who's upkeeping this place, huh? That pool is not in function. That man is crazy. He kept speaking, but I'd stopped listening to him.
See, we all think he's dumb.
The feeling of being watched had returned, this time with a vengeance that caused a cascade of shivers to shoot up my spine. For a moment, I resisted the urge to look around. Then I casted my eyes toward a set of windows to the outside, where someone peered in at us.
Ew.
I only caught a glimpse of the figure for a moment before they realized they'd been spotted and yanked their head back out of sight. But it was enough to see what looked like a small boy or young teenager. Hey! I shouted, rushing over the window. It didn't open, but I was able to crank my neck enough to look out the corner. The deck was empty in all directions, but I knew I hadn't seen things. There had been someone there. Hey guys, did any of you see that? There was no answer from behind me. I could imagine them looking at me like I'd just grown 2 heads. They probably think I'm nuts. Seriously, I'm not kidding. I saw someone out there. They still didn't respond. I felt a slight pang of irritation flow through me and turned back, beginning to speak. Guys, don't be jerks. I'm just asking you The smoke room was empty. They went to go play at the gym.
They left him.
I don't know, but he just says the smoke room was empty now. My voice died in my throat, and I felt a wave of confusion wash over me. What the heck? I looked around, my eyes wandering to the ornate window bar that lined the back of the room. But there was no movement over there either. Did they just freaking leave? I breathed out. The irritation I felt a moment ago reared its head again, and I strode to the open doors to the hallway. Hey, jerks, what the heck is wrong with you? We're not supposed to split up. My voice echoed away into the gloom, bouncing off the wooden walls and dying away, but nobody answered, and a thought suddenly entered my mind. Oh, this better not be a freaking prank. This is not the time or place for that.
All right, so we have all the polygel on, the nails, and now we gotta get shaping, but you know, we don't really want to read the story while this dust collector's going, so I think today we're gonna shape off camera because we just want to get to the story. No need for a couple minute pause of us shaping, so we'll be back when these are shaped. So here are the shaped nails, and now we're gonna get back into the story.
I knew that the three men loved to play practical jokes on themselves and the rest of the crew, but I would have thought they'd known better considering our situation. I let out a deep sigh and began to walk down the hallway, my footsteps muted by carpet floors. If this is a joke, I'll wring your necks, I muttered, reaching a T-junction and shining my light down. Empty, empty, and silent. I kept going straight and passed a sign showing directions to the gym and a movie theater. I remember hearing Spencer talk about it, so I quickened my pace. I expected the sound of their voice to slowly begin filtering down to me, but as I approached the door, I still heard nothing, and when I shone my light inside, reflecting off rowing machines, stationary bikes, and other exercising equipment, my exasperation grew. Know what? Screw this, I said through gritted teeth, scratching the walkie-talkie from my belt and thumping it. Hey, Captain, you're not gonna like this, but the others quite literally abandoned me and ran off. To God knows where. I'm trying to find them, but they're completely gone. Any advice on what I should do? A wall of static greeted me as I let go of the transmit button. Nobody answered. I hit the button again. Captain, do you read me? I'm all alone and the others have ran off. More static. I began to fiddle with the dials, changing the channels. Oh my God, the interference, the stupid piece of junk. I hit the button again. Hello? Does anybody read me? Over? The static suddenly stopped. The hallway went silent, a silence I never experienced before. One that seemed to be alive, if that makes any sense. Then a voice suddenly trembled through the walkie-talkie speakers.
Hello, Nathan.
Okay, so sorry to do this to you guys, but we're leaving you on a cliffhanger. This is where we're gonna stop for today. So it seems like we're gonna be breaking this one hand up into two parts. I hope you guys don't mind. First of all, it's gonna be a little bit easier for me to edit, and second of all, I'll make sure to get them up like a day after each other, so they'll be posted very closely together. So you won't have to wait too long for the next part. We'll be back very soon with the next part. Let us know your thoughts on this story so far in the comments. Next part, we're going to be doing all the nail art, so yeah, we have a long way to go. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Bye!